In my last video, I talked about how to get started creating your very own Desmos activity by going to Custom and then clicking New Activity. Today, we're going to talk about all the different components that you can use to create that activity. So I'm going to click the More Options and press Edit and go into one of my activities. There's lots to discuss. I'm going to start with the blue banner. In the upper right-hand corner, we have a D. That D is an active link, and when clicked, will take you back to the home page. The title is also a link, along with the link icon next to it. Those two, the title and the icon, take you back to the activity details. Feel free to revisit this pop-up at any point in time to change the title, add description, change the settings, or even upload a picture. Don't forget to press save. The plus button adds more screens to your activity. The preview button allows you to look at the activity as a student would see it. I don't have much in my activity right now, so there's not much to see. We will revisit this feature later on in the video. Whenever you are done with your activity, press Publish. Desmos does save along the way automatically. You will need to publish it in order to share it with colleagues and with students. And if you ever go back and change parts of it, make sure you press Publish so those changes are updated. Take two. The next region I want to talk about is this small area underneath the screens. If you ever use a Desmos created activity, click on Teacher Tips. You'll find more information about teacher moves, sample responses, and student supports. And since I just created this, obviously there's nothing here, but it's a great place to leave yourself some notes and helpful hints for those who you want to share this activity with. If you are a super Desmos user and are interested in learning about their computation layer, which is their coding aspect of the platform, click here. If you're not interested in learning about their coding language, don't worry, there's so much to do without that knowledge, but it's there if you are interested. Whenever you see three dots, whether horizontal or vertical, click on them. They mean more options. So the options I have here are duplicate a screen or delete a screen. So my third screen is highlighted, and now I deleted it. I can also delete a screen by clicking the X in the upper right-hand corner. And if I want to duplicate a screen, click the dots and click duplicate. And now I have two of them.
The gray area is our workspace. It comes with a spot for the title and an area for components. Components are used to create the interactive tasks on a screen, and those are found on the left-hand side. There are two categories of components. The first category is what I call mix and match, because I can use two or three of these at a time to create a fun activity. The other category is full screen. I can only use one of these components at a time. To move a component into the workspace, you can either click and drag, or you can click on the component and it pops up. The horizontal lines in the middle of the gray bar allow you to move the components around, so you have a little bit of flexibility with the layout. I'm using a media component and a text input component because I'd like to upload an image and have students write about it. I can also upload a video if I choose to.
Underneath the image, you'll see a text box known as alternative text. This is a support for visually impaired students. Any text that's entered into this box is now attached to the image and can be read by software used by visually impaired students. All right, let's take a look at this screen from the student perspective. I have my title, I have my image, I have a text box. If I needed to, I could put in math type, and I have my submit button. The submit button does not activate until the student enters in text, but it's missing some more directions. So I'm going to grab a note component and add my directions. Notes also have math type attached to it and some editing features with italics and bolding, and you can include a hyperlink if you choose. I am going to bold this section right there. Let's take a look. Looks good. You may notice this feature right here. This is full screen. I'm going to click on that, and now my image takes up the full screen. We talked about more options earlier in the video. You can see every component also has those more options, that icon of 3 dots, either vertical or horizontal. If you click on them, then you see if there are other features attached to the component. So for this one, allow full screen was toggled on. That was that little icon in the corner that blew up and enlarged the picture. I can keep that or I can take it off. I'm going to keep it. And more options is where you go to delete a component if you don't need it. The other two, note and text box, only have one additional feature, and that is the delete component.
Activity Builder has multiple choice and checkbox options. The question that I'm going to ask is written in the title spot, and I could represent answer choices 4 different ways. I could use normal text, math type, I can upload an image, or insert a graph, and that's what I want to demonstrate. I've recreated the question on this slide, and you can see that 3 out of the 4 graphs are already completed. To insert the 4th graph, I'm going to click on graph, and it's going to take me right into the graphing calculator. Where I can easily type in the equation that I want. I'm also going to click the circle and hold in order to change the color. Click done, and now you can see that graph has been inserted into the multiple choice question. I'm going to add just a little bit of text. You can also see that there are boxes for alt text. Let's take a look at this from the student perspective. Here are my graphs. When I click one of them, the Explain Your Thinking box pops up. So you can ask students a multiple choice question and then require them to explain why they chose that particular graph. To activate the Explain Your Thinking box, toggle this option right here where it says Ask Student to explain their answer. If you select that option, if you turn it on, you have one more decision to make. Do you want students to see each other's responses? If you do, also toggle on Show Students their classmates' responses. So when one student finishes their explanation and presses Share with Class, then they will see the responses from 3 other students. If you don't want the sharing to happen, toggle this off And then the option changes from share with class to submit. Let's check out more options. If you started a multiple choice question and then realized it really should be a select all, feel free to go to more options and convert. And you can tell which type of question it is by the selection box. If it is checkboxes or select all that apply, then the checkbox isn't square. If it's a true multiple choice question, then the checkbox is a circle.
This screen is highlighting the ordered list component. It's partially filled out. I'm going to order from least, greatest, and I can add a few more items. There we go. I could also add in a note or an image if that goes along with the list that I want to sequence. From the student's perspective, I can see all of my kind of cards, if you want to call them that. I can move them by clicking on the horizontal lines and dragging. Another example, you can order from smallest slope to greatest slope. And I can press math type. And use math type to put in mathematical equations. Again, click and drag.
The sketch feature has 3 different backgrounds to select from: blank, editable graph, and custom image. That blank background can act as a whiteboard. We can also use the sketch feature in combination with some other components. So here I've uploaded an image and I've used a note component for more directions, and then I've added a text box for students to explain their thinking. So the students can use the sketch tools to create groups of cookies, and then they can describe their groups in the box. For my next example, I am using an editable graph. Click on the component to go into the graphing calculator and input any information, equations that you need. I'm also using a math input component. This is slightly different than a text box input. As you can see from the student perspective, the box is thinner. It's really meant for accepting math-based answers such as numbers and equations. As a student, if I wasn't sure what the slope was, I could use the sketch tools, write on the sketch pad, and then type in an answer and submit. Just like the text input, I can ask students to explain their answer, and I have the option of showing students their classmates' responses. I'm using a table component with a graph component. Regarding the table, you do have some customization regarding the number of columns and rows that you have. You can see that there are some locks in the cells. That means those cells are locked, and students cannot change them when they're in the activity. And you can see that those locked cells are now grayed out, but students can enter information in the empty cells. I did use a graph, and as you can see, I'm able to trace the line, which is great, but you may not want students to trace the line. Well, we have a fix for that. Under More Options, we can change this graph component to a sketch component. Now, the student can write and trace it with a sketch tool, but they can't see any of the coordinates. The last two components in the mix and match area are geometry and button. Geometry really deserves a video all of its own. There's a lot to it. We do have the title area in the workspace. You can use it to create polygons and measure area and perimeter. You can use it for constructions. You can inscribe an equilateral triangle inside of a circle, and you can use it for transformations. The button works with the computation layer. So the buttons let you control all the components on the screen. So if you are interested in learning about computation layer, you're gonna want to know about buttons. The full screen components are slightly different than the mix and match. You can only use one at a time. So if I did have one of the smaller components on the screen, you can see that the full screen components are now grayed out. They are inactive until the workspace is empty again, and now they are active. The three full screen components are the graphing calculator, and this is the full graphing calculator, the same one that students would see at desmos.com, and it has all the same functionality. The other one is marble slides, where you as the teacher could create your own marble slide activities. And then the last full screen one is the card sort. Again, you as a teacher can create your own card sort. And that's it for my overview of Desmos Activity Builder.